Hey, Godzillavangelists. It's been a while since we've all traveled to Monster Island together, and man, I am really sorry about that. The episode you're about to hear was recorded quite some time ago, and in fact, as you'll soon hear, it was last May. Ugh. Unfortunately, there's been a number of different factors that have delayed this upload, as well as new recordings. I won't get into the details, I don't want to bore you, but I do owe you all a big apology. I've heard from a few folks who were sad the show had gone on hiatus, and I really appreciated getting those messages. And the good news is Godzillavangelists will be back. The bad news is I'm not positive about all the whens, whos, and whats at this point. That'll have to wait, but I promise I'll update you all as soon as I know. Alright, I'm approaching Japanese bureaucrat levels of rambling. For now, enjoy the episode. It's a good one. There is a legend of one man who persuaded his friends to watch every Godzilla movie ever made. This world is on the brink of destruction. We need you now, Godzillavangelists! Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast. Produced and hosted by Ryan Sargent. Featuring Sam Schlenker and Joanna Brodecki. So guys, I don't know if you've heard of this big movie that just came out. It's a science fiction epic with beloved heroes, villains, who they've been building up this series for 10 years, and it's finally all coming to a head. You know what I'm talking about, of course.
Oh, yeah.
Yep, Age of Ultron.
That's right, Sam.
Yeah, Sam, you always have to just add that extra little swerve.
You know, this is
a straightforward joke.
I'm sorry. What is the new one called? Because I didn't know I was making a joke when I said that.
Just so everyone doesn't get completely confused, the joke was I was setting it up to be Marvel Infinity War.
Oh, Infinity Wars.
But it's actually Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster.
Yay.
Yay.
Get it? Because you can say that about both movies. We'll jump right into it. But before we do, I have to introduce our guest for the week, month. My good friend, a fellow Godzilla nerd, a puppeteer, a filmmaker, an all-around cool guy, and his name is Todd G. Levin.
It's me, and it's Levin.
It's Todd.
Levin? Oh, I've been saying your name wrong all these years.
How many times do you say my last name when you are talking about me?
Fairly often, because people are like, Todd who? And I'm like, oh.
I'm always leaving.
Yeah.
He's always leaving. Good lord. It's just that kind of night. None of you at home can see this, but Joanna's currently curled up in a tiny bathroom to do this recording. Bless her heart.
I apologize for the echo on the recording, if there is one.
Anyway, so Todd, I know, but for the audience, can you tell them about your prior Godzilla experience? This is a question we just have to ask every guest.
Oh, yeah. Lifelong Godzilla fan. He's like my guy, you know? I mean, I love monster movies, grew up watching them, and I guess Godzilla's just always been my dude, you know? I can't remember a time when I wasn't watching Godzilla films. My friend Ryan's like, hey, I'm doing a podcast. Do you want to come talk about Godzilla? And I think you probably saw my eyes, widen bigger than my face.
Your emails seemed very enthusiastic, like you were the right guy for the job.
Oh, absolutely. Not only that, but a little behind-the-scenes story. When I was putting the podcast together, Todd was one of the people who was interested in being a co-host, but then I had to break his heart by telling him that I wanted people who didn't know anything.
Oh my god, Ryan, every single listener now is like, God damn you!
Yeah.
And I didn't know this. Because I just missed. I saw Ryan and Godzilla podcast, and I got excited, so I sent him like a whole thing.
He wrote his application.
I wrote like a whole this is how I feel about Godzilla, and then he was like, "Yeah, I'm looking for people who don't know Godzilla very well." I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Like,
Well,
fuck, I gave
I'll just
myself
be
away.
over here then, liking Godzilla.
You know what a fun midi-sode would be is Ryan reading Todd's application and then Joanna's and my applications.
Who's that?
Because
That would be hilarious. Please do. I was just going to
two-word,
recommend
yeah.
that.
Two-word response.
yeah, exactly.
I really tried with mine. I remember I was like, oh boy, I got to get this right. I better research, but not too much research so I don't seem like I know too much.
Regardless of where we all came in on the series, I feel like we all understand it now. We all sort of know what these early 60s Godzilla movies are about. And so we've come to the big, splashy turning point of Ghidorah the Three-Headed Monster. Another history lesson, just because these people who bring these movies to the United States are so interesting to me. This one was brought in by Continental Distribution, which is owned by a guy named Walter Reed, who owns like 40 or 50 theaters in the New York City area. He was like a wealthy socialite and a distributor and financier of foreign films. He brought like all these like classics to the United States, like La Grande Illusion, Playtime, Kwaidan.
Oh, wow.
But in 1964, his company was like almost bankrupt, which prompted him to say the following: "Well, I guess you can't take major awards to the bank."
Great quote.
He's not bitter at all. But he sucked up his pride and started to distribute more commercial movies, which actually put him in the first, and as far as I know, only bidding war for a Godzilla movie. AIP wanted this one as well. But
The only one?
I think so. Maybe there was one over like the American remake rights. But as far as like who wants to bring this to the US, I think this was the only one where two people went back and forth on
So it was like high school elections where there was only one like category where there were two candidates and everything else was you were just getting Susie.
Right. Whoever went up for treasurer was going to get it.
Wow.
Right.
As someone who tried very hard for a lowly position in student government and didn't win, I feel very offended. I think my slogan was "Ready, Set, Joe," because I was on the varsity cross country team.
whoa.
Obviously.
That's pretty good.
To use your own vocabulary against you. That's precious,
I
Joanna.
wasn't popular, and I really was banking. Everyone in the band, I wasn't in the band, I was in choir, but everyone in the band was like, "We're voting for you. Fuck these other guys." But it didn't matter. They weren't enough.
Well, anyway, Walter Reed won the bidding war, and his company made it to 1977, so in a way you can say Godzilla saved him.
Godzilla saves us all. That was cool history, dude. I should probably listen to your podcast. if you do that, I don't know that kind of stuff. That's awesome.
He's got a lot of that.
Cool.
We don't. In case you were wondering.
We have none.
I'm more of like a street smarts Godzilla fan, you know? Like
Yeah.
Like
You're playing a shell game with Godzilla.
right.
Mine and Sam's notes are more like, his thighs look especially large in this film.
yeah.
But that's why you're here.
If you wanted me to write an essay on his jowls in the last movie, I would do it.
Jowls over time, yeah, you could do it.
J-O-T, Jowls Over Time. So here's the story this time, with occasional sound effects accompaniment from my lovely co-hosts. Alright. Princess Salno, the heir apparent of a troubled nation, is en route to Japan when her plane is blown up, but not before... Thank you. But not before she escapes with the help of a mysterious presence. She emerges, claiming to be a Martian prophetess, correctly predicting the return of Rodan and Godzilla. Maulus, her attempted assassin, tracks her down. She escapes from several close calls. She escapes from several close calls with the help of Detective Shindo, his sister Naoko, and the tiny twin fairies of Infant Island. Meanwhile, a huge meteorite crashes in Corona Valley.
Boom.
God damn it.
Rocks.
A huge meteorite crashes in Corona Valley, where it is studied by Professor Mirha. It eventually cracks open, and the fiery form of Ghidorah emerges.
Dear
That's
God.
not at all what Ghidorah sounds like.
I can't remember.
The fairies call Mothra, who persuades Godzilla and Rodan to help her fight. They eventually win, and Shindo helps the princess reclaim her memory. All is well in Japan once more, as Ghidorah flies into space.
Not dead.
Not dead.
It's like the happiest ending of any like Godzilla film, you know.
They never
Yeah, I mean-
die, though. They're never dead. How can they
That's
be
not
content
true.
with that?
That's not true. He dies in the first one.
Exactly. 1.05%.
Things are getting soft, guys. I don't know if you noticed, but things are getting soft.
It's like when you watch Avengers and you're like, I see you signed up for the sequel 5 minutes into the film.
It doesn't help when they announce every single movie they're making 10 years in advance.
Ryan, that was a great synopsis, by the way. The
thank you.
voice you used, and did you practice that?
No, I'm just using my radio voice.
That's great.
It took some figuring out how to describe the story of this movie, because it's crazy as hell.
Yeah, this is where the story starts to just fly off the handle.
And it's edited really differently in both versions. It's the same story, but like the order and that things happen is different.
When you say both versions, what do you mean?
American and Japanese.
Are there two different ones?
Mhm.
What?
Ryan,
the-
we watched American,
Which
right?
one did you guys watch?
We did.
Oh.
Well, I watched both, but Sam and I watched the American one together. That's the one I'm more.
How do you know the
familiar with.
difference?
One's in Japanese.
Yeah.
What language they're speaking in.
Yeah.
Let's
At least that's the case with these older ones. Anyway, we're getting into nerdy territory. I'm gonna stop there.
are
so-
there really different edits?
There really are.
I mean, I know
for
that
every
the first
single-
one has like it's King of the Monsters and and it's a different movie, but the other ones are kind
I
of
believe
edited
that-
differently as well.
I believe that every single Godzilla movie up to the 90s ones was edited differently.
You're blowing my mind right now.
The story is batshit insane in both, right? Because I'm
Yes.
like, this was
it-
crazy.
There was no need. There's no need to watch both versions this time. It's just that the events happen in different orders. It's strange. But anyway, here are the characters. So we have Shindo, the detective, who's a complete white bread hero, but he's like a decent enough James Bond stand-in.
I mean, he has a good henchman villain, right? That's what makes him a good Bond stand-in.
Right, he has a good villain to play off of.
That villain has the best sunglasses.
It's not just the sunglasses. It's the fact that he wears one of those Elizabethan ruffly collars with sunglasses.
There's a lot of
I forgot
Shakespeare
about
collar
that at the
going on
beginning.
in this film.
I was like, where the
Yeah,
fuck these people?
I don't know what kind of country Celgina is, but I want to live there.
And those glasses, I love those glasses. He just looks blind the whole time.
Yeah,
Right.
it's so bizarre because like I understand that they want to make it seem like, oh, this is a foreign country, but they get that people only wear those things to like dignitary functions, right? They don't wear that when they're like plotting to kill
Right.
princesses. Well, if we want to jump ahead to Malnus, I used to be so scared of this guy when I was a kid watching the movie. Not so much anymore, but when it comes to playing like the the like quiet, eerie thug. He's good enough.
He's great.
Yeah, he was great.
Much more interesting to me is Naoko, who's got like a lot of independence and feistiness, and she's got like a really fun, real relationship with her brother.
It was finally like she's not just a part of the reporter she's not just like the girls taking photos and getting yelled at about taking photos incorrectly. She's like, you can sit and buy me a drink and leave in 10 minutes. I was like, okay.
Men are like
yeah.
fish in a woman's net.
Having a sister, I just felt like there was a lot of very accurate sibling fighting going on in this film.
Yeah.
Like very accurate. I was like, wow, they actually captured like, because I don't know, they don't do that very often in movies, like non-platonic, or I mean platonic sort of like banter. It's always like there's some romance going on usually. So yeah, they're really funny in the film.
They're all great. I love the moment, especially when he's lying on the floor and she like jumps on top of him to change the channel on the TV. That's like a very brother-sister
And she's like,
thing.
do something good for your mom or something like that.
Yeah. You're right, Todd. I have a younger sister as well, and I was like, that's what it's like. I also think this is technically the first movie we've watched to pass the Bechdel test. We finally have 2 named female characters.
Oh wow.
I know.
Talk about something other than a man.
And who are like doing things on their own for certain parts in the
Yeah.
movie at the hotel, I was like, okay.
It didn't count to have a collective name for the peanuts.
I was going to
Plus the
say,
peanuts.
it's very, very technical, because I feel like basically the little twin fairies are named characters, and so Mothra would really be the first one. But this is technically the first one. And sadly, Yuriko Hoshi just passed away today, the woman who played her.
Today?
Wow.
I saw that, yeah, just
That's-
today.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Oh, what a coincidence.
She was also the photographer in the last movie, Mothra vs. Godzilla, but I love her role here. She's great.
Do you know how old she was?
I think she was 75.
Oh, wow. That's young. Okay.
Then we've got her boyfriend, maybe, Professor Miura,
Maybe.
who is a rare case of the same actor playing the same character in this series of movies. I didn't know that. I thought he played a different emotionless scientist in each of these movies, but he's actually the same character as Mothra vs. Godzilla.
Oh, it's the same name.
Yeah.
Scientist?
Yeah, they found the need to bring someone so unremarkable back, and then all these interesting characters. They're like, nah, don't know if audience can deal with.
I liked
this
his
much
orange
interest.
jacket. I liked all their outdoor gear. It really made me want to go for a hike.
Yeah. I also want to know what he studies, that he's an expert in both giant eggs and meteorites. That they can call him in for both of them.
Well, this is the moment. This is the moment he was waiting for, like the crossover. It's like when people create their own major, he hadn't ever been able to explain why meteorite and egg studies could actually intersect until right now. That's I think why he's so interested.
Listen, man, he studies Gaia. Okay. The Earth is an egg.
Yeah.
Oh.
Whoa.
My friend's brother
Whoa.
is trying to get his PhD in studying raspberries and potatoes. They're in the same family, if you guys didn't know.
Oh.
Those very different foods.
What family is that? Can I be
Wow.
in it?
Hey.
I love both those things.
Then we've got Princess Salno, played by Akiko Wakabayashi.
Of all the roles that have been in these Godzilla films, that is the number one role I would have wanted to play thus far.
Yeah.
Just
You'd really want
just
to be
her
Princess
getting to
Salno.
be all
Zoned out.
I am Martian. I'm a Martian. She just kept saying it. I was like watching the Jetsons. I'm a Martian.
She does a good job of distinctifying her two characters, though, especially in the Japanese version, because in the American dub, when she's possessed, they dub her to speak like kind of like a robot and like haltingly, like, I am a Martian. I am not of this earth. In the Japanese version, it's really interesting and kind of creepy, because she's got a desperate, haggard kind of voice.
Ooh.
Like, she's like absolutely like exhausted at the pit of her soul, and so that's why she's doing the worn out kind of thing.
Yeah, she had all those good costume changes too.
Yeah,
For sure, the winning role.
I honestly think she's so cute in the fisherman's outfit. With the
I knew
little
Ryan
hat.
would have a little
I'm
crush.
all about it.
She weirdly reminded me of Barbara Streisand in the beginning of What's Up, Doc?
Yes,
I don't know why.
I agree.
But not as much of a crust as my faves. The fairies are back, and they got more to do than ever. And they're back to rocking their indigenous look. They've skipped the gentrified outfits from last time.
Sorry, that made me laugh.
I spent the first 20 minutes of the movie being like, all right, there's going to be no Mothra. We're not going to an island. It's going to be different than ever before. And then they showed up. But then it still was different. We didn't have the sequence where we go to an island, we fight Godzilla once, we lose, we go again. So I was happy with that.
You were happy?
I was into this film because there was so much going on.
Yeah, I actually agree.
Just wait. These movies get way weirder.
My first note that I wrote was saucer people and princesses ! So I feel like the beginning of the movie, all in.
I think that's
all
why I got
it.
sad almost about the Mothra part, because I was just ready to continue with this alien. It's like when we were watching the mining movie, Rodan, where was it?
Yeah.
I'm like ready to go with this beginning sequence.
Well, sadly though, this is their final appearance in the role. This is the last time that the Peanuts played the Little Fairies.
What? Ryan, I could have had some hope. You know?
Ryan, don't cry.
I'm trying. I'm really trying.
Guys, all right, hold for tears. Hold for tears.
Yeah. We need to cut for 20 minutes. Work this out.
On the note of Ryan's love of the Peanuts, one of my other first notes I wrote was that that I imagine Ryan dreamed of being one of the children on this show.
I totally did.
Yeah.
I guess we may as well talk about it now because we've brought it up twice.
The show's so funny.
Great part. It's completely unexpected too. You just get this family scene where Shindo and Noko are watching TV with their mom, and the show comes on. What are they doing now? And these kids come up and are like, "We want to know what Mothra's doing now." And the fairies show up and sing a song, and like everybody hallucinates Mothra or something. But it's just absolutely, completely insane. Like, I know I keep saying this, but this is just such a far cry from the original movie. Like, monsters have become so everyday and mundane that not only are they on a variety show, they're not headlining it, and Shindo is bored by it. He says, I want to turn this off.
I also was like,
it's insane.
Is this involved in insurance policies now? You know? Like giant monsters? They have to be, right?
Right, it's like renter's insurance.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like $10 a year.
You get a discount on auto insurance if you buy it.
Yeah, I got a bone to pick with this scene because as funny as it is, I really am not down with... I mean, these princesses are like mystical creatures. They're like really important. And they're just like used on this show and as hosts and like shuffled off and everything. I don't like one bit how they're treated here. Exploitation out the wazoo. However, it seems like they're sort of using the show as well to kind of, get the word out. So
I can see what you're saying, but it's kind of a funny arc with the two little fairies because they're like innocents and mystics from this island who don't understand the world around them, and then in the next movie they're wearing like hats and have handbags and shit, and then in this one they're booking TV appearances. And
they do say, I think they do say that they're like not into it. They do say later like, yeah, we'd appreciate next time if like there's no fanfare, something like that.
Yeah.
Not gonna happen.
They kind of mirror like the rise of a young Hollywood starlet, where it's like first they're magical and everyone is paying to see them, see their show, and they're the talk of the town and they're so unique, and then by the end they're on Hollywood squares.
They're just real tired of that Mothra single. They just have to sing every concert they do. Everybody asks them to sing the Mothra song, and they're like, "You don't get it. It conjures a magical beast. We can't just sing the song whenever we want."
It's not casual, guys.
Yeah, we do it, but we
sing, float on.
Oh no! Nowadays we play the Mothra song, but we transition it halfway through to Heart-Shaped Box.
How would that even sound?
Speaking of old friends, we've got Takashi Shimura back as Tsukamoto the Doctor.
Dude.
Joanna, do you have any feelings about the return of your...
Oh, he was great. I was like, this guy knows how to act.
Do you like this guy?
Tiny scene.
Do you like? He's my favorite face, I think, in all of Japanese cinema. I love this fucking guy.
He has a great
face.
It's like because he's
His
in the
face
original
with
film.
the doctor beard is
so
great.
he has a small part in the original film, so he's like important in that way, in the Godzilla canon. And he shows up like a few times in Godzilla films. He's also in Akira Kurosawa's Akira, and like I don't know, this guy's he just has. I'm not well versed in like the history of Japanese cinema and whatnot. I would imagine though that he's one of the most popular actors next to like Mifune, right?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, one of my favorite stories about Godzilla's critical reception in the U.S. is the guy who reviewed Akira when it came to the United States. Whoever was doing the New York Times interviews, movie reviews rather, at the time, said that Takashi Shimura may be the finest actor in the world right now.
Wow.
And then a couple of years later, he reviewed Godzilla and said, not a person in this movie can act. He didn't even recognize his hero. It was very funny and sad at the same
was it
time.
after? Did Godzilla come out after Akira? Oh,
yeah.
Wow, that's great.
Ryan, is he in any more of these?
No, this is another sad departure. This is his final appearance in a Godzilla movie. But he does his all. He's playing this crusty, good-natured psychologist, and
he's really great.
He's
yeah.
And then we get onto the monster characters here. So why don't we start with our newcomer here, King Ghidorah, or just Ghidorah this time. I love him. To me, he's like
King Ghid,
the greatest Godzilla nemesis.
That's correct.
He's a great villain monster.
That is correct.
He is,
and he's got
he is all over the place. His heads are flying everywhere. His wings are flapping. He doesn't know where he's going.
I love that. He feels insane to me.
Yes.
Like, I feel like if he was speaking, he'd be like the Joker, because his sound is like laughing.
I'm an abomination.
He's like laughing all the time, and his heads are flying everywhere. And I don't know if you guys thought this, but I've had people like watch this. It's like they can't like puppeteer the heads right, but it's an intentional effect. They're intentionally making this stuff go everywhere.
Yeah, it's kind of creepy.
It actually would be easier to hold it stiff, but they're like making it more complicated by making him like bob.
And he kind of has this gold sheen to him that just makes him seem grander than everyone else when they're fighting.
Yeah.
King Ghid is the shit.
I'm glad you're on my page.
You know what I thought though? Was he shooting electricity or fire out?
Electricity.
I was like, damn, too bad we ain't got King Kong here, because him and electricity, my old friend. He's too tired though. Let him rest.
Right. Leave him alone. He needs some time off. And then Rodan, who I have to ask, did his return give you guys PTSD?
Oh my god, gave me mad anxiety. I was like,
Well, he was more beaky this time, though. He looked a little different.
He was less annoying.
Do you not like Rodan?
Oh, man.
They have a beef with Rodan.
I also don't like Rodan.
Oh,
yes,
you're my favorite
welcome
guest.
to the club.
It was the first movie we had to watch twice, so I think that soured the
No, it was just a bad movie.
He's just not very dynamic, to me he's just like it looks like he really just has the one look, the one pose, and the wings just kind of go and the head sometimes moves, but that's like really it. And he's just listen, he's like good cannon fodder for Godzilla to like blow through, but as a villain he's like no good at all. But that's why, Ghidorah is there.
But I was wondering, Sam, did you have PTSD when you saw that Mothra might shoot out a little web? Because I had PTSD too. The second I saw
I actually have I have it written down what Sam said very soon after Mothra appeared, because he had a very strong visceral reaction. He said, "I hate that fucking worm thing. It's just so disgusting."
That, in my defense, I find the silking to be just absolutely foul.
That's a kind word for it.
Just a funny term. I hate that silking.
It's to the point where the fact that was the entire third act of the last film ruined the movie for me. Brought it down an entire peg, because it's so awful. And also you know they were all laughing about it. Like, guys, you know what this looks like? And then laughing and chuckling, and the people in the suit, the actors in the suits were kind of like, they felt like they lost a piece of their innocence.
Soul, yeah.
Now that's interesting. If you're in a suit and you're just getting silly stringed, but it's very white and very reminiscent of something else, like, are you just sitting there like, yeah, okay, like, I better be getting paid for this, you know?
Well,
Wait, might be a dumb question, but is it actors in suits?
Godzilla, Rodan, and Ghidorah are.
Well, call me an idiot.
Wait, really?
Yeah.
That's funny, that's great. That's actually really good, because I feel like that's usually the main criticism of these films, is that it's the guy in the suit problem, right? That everything looks like it's just a guy in a suit and a rubber suit, whatever.
Is it true that Larva Mothra is actually shot on bigger sets and it's actually 3 men and a human centipede inside?
Oh my god. Dude had to bring up human centipede in the Godzilla podcast. Oh my god.
I'm gonna change the subject here slightly. Because you guys know I'm a huge fan of Mothra, and I love how she's back for more heroics. She tries to take on Ghidorah all by herself, and the other monsters are inspired by her example.
No, they're like, we're weak and lame. We must act. My favorite line I think the whole series came in this movie, except for the terribly sad one in the first one where the mom's like, we'll be with your father now. It's so sad. But when the reporter was talking and she was like, they won't do anything, or when maybe it was the Peanuts, they were talking about Rodan and Godzilla, and they were like, they are so bullheaded, and I was like, yes, exactly what I've been getting at about Godzilla this whole time. He's not nice.
He really
He's like
is.
pretty much a dick a lot.
Yeah, Godzilla's here too. He's actually maybe in it less than any of the other
Yeah.
monsters, which is interesting. But this is his big turn to heroism, and he's just kind of a buffoon in this one. He gets hit in the foot, gets hit in the crotch.
Oh my god.
He does a funny double take.
Don't like pass over that one, because man, that he falls spread-eagled onto a power line. not a power line, a power line tower. It is like a monumental nutshot of the highest order. Unreal.
Physically,
That's
you
actually,
might be right.
I'm gonna level with the listeners right now and say that right now I'm on a bunch of NyQuil because I'm quite sick, and when I sat down to remember, because I watched the movie a couple weeks back, and I was trying to remember what the movie was, and I was like, the things I remember are Godzilla nutshot, a Godzilla playing volleyball with a rock,
Loves rocks. He fucking loves those rocks.
in a man with sunglasses and a roughly Shakespeare costume, and I couldn't figure out if it was a fever dream or not.
So the first one that really stood out to me was the weird meteorite. And the first thing that popped out was I was like watching the scene where they were walking through the valley, Kuroda Valley, and I was like, something's weird about this. Why doesn't this feel like a Godzilla movie? And I realized it's because it's real mountains and not a set, because they're always doing the Toho sound stages whenever they're in nature. So I'm like used to that being what nature in Godzilla movies looks like. So to see like the real
styrofoam
mountains, I was like, this is wrong. The other thing that I always think about at this part is the moment with all the pickaxes and shovels getting magnetically attracted to the meteorite is so memorable.
That was cool.
And it's one of my dad's favorite Godzilla moments. He says he remembers being 6 years old and just like it's burned onto his brain, like sitting in front of the TV and seeing this.
I could see as a kid
where all
being like, wow, science! Like, that's like your first distinct memory of science working.
Yeah, because he wanted to be a paleontologist or an archaeologist until he like finished high school. So
Is your dad a big Godzilla fan?
Oh yeah, he helped introduce me to it.
Wow, that's cool that you shared that. Wow, that's wonderful.
He's spoiler alert for like 7 episodes from now, there's a movie that I want to have him on for as a guest.
Oh, yes,
so you
that'd be
guys will
great.
have your chance to ask him any question you want.
You heard it here first.
Oh man, I have so
Yes.
many questions about little Brian. Dream journal questions.
Dream journal questions. I love both Rodan and Godzilla's intros in this one. Godzilla especially chasing the whales. It's such a weird, like, slice of life moment almost. And it looks really good for 1964. Like the whales bobbing through the ocean and Godzilla rising up behind them. And then the scene with Rodan emerging is so funny with the guy who drops his hat in the crater.
Oh my
and the guy's
God.
like, I'll get it for $2.
That was crazy. I was like, somebody stop this. Like, stop betting with him.
Isn't it? It's not a crater. It's a volcano, right?
Right. Yeah. it's
He's
a
like,
crater.
I'll go get it. Like, what are you doing, man? It's a volcano.
Is the implication that this is that volcano that he was buried under?
Yes, absolutely. That's what it is.
I have to say though, Rodan looks horrific. Like the first shot of like his face like coming out, the way that they shot it, and it's a problem that I have with some of this movie is that like the scales are sometimes really off, and it is what people sometimes like complain about with these films, that like they just look kind of silly and whatnot. And like when he comes, his head kind of comes out and he opens his beak and he just like, it just looks really fake. There's like a line in it. There's no lines inside anyone's mouth. Like it's just bad.
That shot you're talking about, even at the time, it looked bad. That shot is trimmed really short in the American version, so you don't see his mouth open all the way. They cut away from it.
Does Godzilla, too, not to you guys, like Godzilla to me still looks like a dog that's kind of like, nope, oh, rocks, tail. Like just like a golden retriever who you were like, here, Scotty, come get the bone. And he's like, what?
Oh.
He's just going to get more puppy-like from here. His eyes keep getting bigger.
His face is
gets
very
more
flat.
muzzly.
Yeah, it's very...
Yeah. Well, before we get to that, I wanted to bring up the clinic rescue scene, because I think this is one of the more well-directed, like, human action scenes in any of these movies. I love the James Bond type action, and it's intercut really well with the Godzilla Rodan fight, and there's like tension, like, oh my god, is she gonna get electrocuted to death? And then Rodan drops Godzilla on the power line.
I thought the human parts were
as
good.
you said,
I thought
with the
the
nutshell.
monster parts were very silly. When Rodan picked Godzilla up and he's just flying around, he has never looked more helpless in his entire life, or non-terrifying. And yeah, that spread eagle drop on the electrical lines, really hilarious.
Well, I feel like at this point, terrifying is totally out of the vocabulary for Godzilla.
Yeah.
This is where it's really turning to something different.
That's a good
and
point.
why this is sort of why I said the end of an era at the beginning of this episode.
Ryan, your point about the direction of the human scenes, that's actually something I wrote down as well, which is I think in terms of just dynamic direction in the movie, I think this is the best one so far. I thought it had some really fun, like, there were a lot of snap zooms, which I don't remember in any of the others, but there's also just the camera, it didn't feel like we were just locked on people sitting in a room ever. It felt like it was a little more, there was a little more motion, it was a little more kinetic.
I liked, too, the way when they were all fighting at the end, how they were, going between everything that was happening and all the tension of everyone kind of being on a timeline and needing to get things done.
Yeah, the ending, the way that all the storylines come together at the end, I really like. And speaking of which, the clinic rescue leads where... sorry, I should explain what's going on in that scene. Basically, the princess is being treated, and they're going to give her an electroshock so she can get her memory back or whatever. But the bad guys turned the electricity up too high. So...
Oh, no.
Damn, that
have
Sunwest,
to
man.
get him out of there.
The old turn the electricity up bit.
Yeah, it's bizarre. Like, why does the electricity even go up
to 3,000?
6 times higher than a fatal dose? Then everybody gets out of there, and one of my favorite scenes in any Godzilla movie happens: the Grand Monster Summit. It's such a fan treat as long as you don't take these movies too seriously, because like all the implicit threads that I've been talking about and you guys have made fun of me for become explicit here, and Sam can't deny it anymore that the monsters have explicit personalities.
I'm not going to deny that they did, but I will also just say that my last note of the film, or of my notes, is all this anthropomorphism is out of control. Because that actually is what lost me. The summit
How
lost
could that
me.
lose you, man?
It was silly.
This movie's silly.
Yeah, I mean, look, this is
Grounded.
we're talking personal preference. I was all in for roughly sunglasses princesses, and then once Godzilla got silked and Rodan started dancing around laughing is when I was like, oh no.
I just think that that's the only place you could take these movies at this point, and I love it. Basically, this is the scene where Mothra is trying to convince Godzilla and Rodan to fight Ghidorah, and they're airing their grievances with the human race. They both explain that they've been hurt by them so much that they don't trust them or like them.
It is interesting, though, that I felt like in this movie, they weren't as interested in destroying humankind. They were just fighting each other.
But
it felt like all damage was collateral damage.
And it also didn't feel 100% malicious against each other. It just felt like they were kind of having fun fighting.
Right.
Like, because they'd stop and pause and, like, listen, and then they'd be like, oh, right. And then they'd be like, now we're fighting. Okay, now we're listening. Now I'm fighting.
Yeah, the fights are shot very comedically and pettily. Like, they're not really hurting each other. Which just... I know you guys laugh at me so much for reading too much into it, and I'll fully admit it on this particular case. But in the scene where Godzilla sees Rodan for the first time, his eyes hold on him for a while, and I'm like, it's almost like there's a kinship there, because they're both like dinosaurs. They're both holdovers from an era who've been mutated. So I feel like there's like a weird dynamic there, like, oh, there can only be one of us.
No, I almost got the vibe of, like, not that they didn't want to necessarily kill each other. They just wanted to, like, keep fighting each other, having a good fun time, and, like, not give a shit what happened to the humans.
Right, that's where I was going, is, like, they explicitly want to be, like, there can only be one of us, but in their hearts, they're like, there's another one like me. There's somebody else like me out there. But, most of all, one of the greatest lines in any of these movies has to be, oh, Godzilla, what terrible language.
I was going to bring that up.
I liked
it.
I love that.
I like the line where
it
he just says, like someone says, "What are they saying?" And he's like, "How should I know? I don't speak monster." That's like the best line.
Oh man.
I don't speak monster. No, but this seems like extremely important. If you're not gonna geek out, Ryan, allow me to, because this is the first time that we've ever. First of all, this is the first time that we've ever seen that they have personality, like you said. This is the first time that we know what Godzilla kind of sounds like in terms of the voice that he uses to express himself. And that's really important because if Godzilla's like this metaphor for human folly and playing God and, like nuclear weapons and weapons of mass destruction and everything, his reasoning, we have no reason to help the humans. Humans are always bullying us. From his perspective, it's the humans that are mean. This guy who's like just trashing these cities and towns and everything. I mean, it's really complicated and super interesting if you're kind of getting into like the Godzilla as metaphor sort of area. It's really fascinating.
Absolutely. And this scene always makes me think of one of my favorite quotes by Ishiro Honda, who directed so many of these movies. He said, "Monsters are tragic beings. They're born too tall, too strong, too heavy. They're not evil by choice. That is their tragedy." That scene always makes me think of it, even though it's so silly.
Why are you looking at me, Ryan? Why are you looking at me like that? Yeah, all right, fine, yeah. I'm crying a little bit. I'm identifying with this. Yeah, all right, this is great. Fine.
I mean, I still stand by the fact that Godzilla can sometimes just be a dick, and maybe Rodan too, but not King Kong and Mothra.
Absolutely, he's a petty dick, but it's because he's hurting deep down inside. That's what's
He
so
just doesn't
fun
look
about
as
it.
tired as King Kong. He looks like, he could put in a little more effort to be a nice guy.
Well, he's going to start trying from now on.
Poor little Mothra, by
do
the
his
way. I
best.
was like, damn, what is this, a teenager, right? Is Mothra a teenager at this point? Mothra too?
It's baby Mothra.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, just to go back a bit, I remember as a kid when I heard that, like, oh yeah, the other one died. The other twin died. I was like, what?
Yeah, and it's like
Yeah,
on
I was just
screen,
about to
right?
ask.
Swerve. Yeah.
Just like, yeah, the other one died. It's like, that's a big deal. That was probably a whole movie that we missed.
Yeah, the inner tragedy on Infant Island.
Wow, Ryan, always a chance to bring Mothra back.
That's the Godzilla franchise's Wrath of Khan. That movie that just never existed, where one of the Mothra dies.
It's deeply personal drama. But then we get into the final battle, which is just a lot of cool monster mashy fun. Everybody gets a cool moment. I love Rodan leading Ghidorah on a chase and then suddenly swerving back to smash
I
him
love
over.
Godzilla
That's
just
a fun
like,
bit.
again, I said it before today and in the past, but he just loves throwing those fucking rocks and doing those tail grabs. He was all about it. He thought he was being so funny. And then when Mothra got on Rodan, I was like, all right, here we go. Let the spinning begin.
Going for a little
Tell
ride.
me if I'm wrong, but was there a part where kind of like a Harpo Marx or something moment, like where one of them shakes Godzilla's tail and it causes his face to shake?
I think so.
Because I don't know if that's Harpo Marx, but I wrote that down. It's like some like old school slaps. It's like whatchamacallit them,
Stooges?
guys? This is a slapstick bit.
Three
Yes,
Stooges.
thank you. It's like a Three Stooges bit. Thank you.
There is a lot of Three Stooges bit going on. He gets like kicked in the butt, and he's like, "Oh, whoop, 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 whoop." You almost like imagine that's like what his noise that he makes, like, because he's like, "Oh, my bum," It's so goofy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which leads into one of my favorite unintentional comedy moments when Ghidorah causes the rock slide that kills the assassin because he obviously catches the boulder and jumps.
Yeah.
When this dude straight up catches a boulder in a rock slide, yeah, that's the funniest thing in the world.
Yeah.
And the princess, she just like falls down this like huge crevasse and just, it's like, oh man, she's dead. But then it just shows her, it's like, oh, well, she fell on a nice bed of pine needles, so I guess she's alive. It's like, no, pretty sure she's still dead.
Right. Have you ever grabbed a pine needle?
Painful.
And like I said, they beat Ghidorah, the princess is saved. You guys think I missed anything?
The only other thing I think I've got is just at the very beginning, there's a really bizarre moment where the professor is talking in an over-the-shoulder, and then another scientist behind him just rises into frame over his shoulder. Did you guys notice this?
No.
I'm not
It's
sure.
Only after you pointed it out to me. It's really funny.
I made him rewind it because it's in the very beginning of the movie, but that happens, so that's a little Easter egg to look out for. This kind of background actor just bend and snapping right back into frame behind him.
I was also to the very end. I was like I was ready for the romance at that point, and then it just didn't happen. Like, I was ready for this guy to get with the princess,
I know.
or at least for her to be like to his sister, like, "Hey, let's like go hang out sometime," Let's be friends.
I agree, and it's a cultural thing because it was really starting to bother me. I think it kind of died off, but there were a few years recently where people were changing little things in their movies so they would appeal more to Chinese audiences. And I was noticing all these action movies with romances where the heroes didn't kiss at the end. And I was like, this is so bizarre because that's like a big no-no in a family movie in China.
Oh, interesting.
They were working it in because they wanted to export all these movies, and it really annoyed me. But yeah, that's what that reminds me
I know.
of.
I was like,
Ryan,
really? You're gonna have this long staring into each other's eyes and like not go on a date afterwards? Like what?
No, actually, you'll be happy to know. You'll be happy to know that actually there are 2 movies coming out this summer that I, in some part, worked on a very small part of them, and both of them were made with a Chinese distributor or production company, and both of them have exactly that thing coming out this summer.
Yep.
So it's not dead, Ryan.
It's coming back.
Great. Wonderful.
If you're in for some good 6 inches for Jesus endings, then be on the lookout this summer.
I'm so glad you said that. The other thing about the end of this movie is, and Ryan, you'll be able to tell me, you'll be able to correct me if I'm wrong, because some of these movies, when you grow up watching them, like they just kind of melt together for me a little bit, especially because they're all called sometimes the same thing, and
right, sure.
But isn't this the first film where the monsters who are supposed to be the villains are just alive and just on the mainland? They didn't get driven back into the sea or get buried by a volcano or a rock slide or something. They're just kind of alive at the end. And so this problem that's the usual problem of a Godzilla film, which is how do we get rid of this giant monster in this city that's destroying everything? It's just not really solved at all. What happens at the end of this movie?
There's a break.
There's a freeze frame of just the two of them just standing there while Mothra just kind of goes back to the island,
wiggles away.
It's a unique ending in that way.
Yeah. The fairies absolutely say goodbye, Rodan, goodbye, Godzilla. I mean, they're just
kind of there.
They're Earth's protectors, whether we like it or not.
I could just imagine they handshake or maybe go get a burger.
They grab a beer together for sure.
Some people.
They're like, hey, you want to join my softball league? Plays on Wednesdays after work.
So what are you gonna do now that you're not stuck in that volcano? I don't know. Probably terrorize a few towns. Do the thing.
I mean, Rodan really needs to go to therapy. His wife died in that volcano.
Right.
He's really
another off-screen death.
Yeah. Well, no, she died on screen. That's the end of
Rodan.
Rodan.
Okay. I thought they both fell into the volcano.
I mean, they both did. I guess technically she did die off screen.
That's the scene I want to see, is him getting up and being like, "Oh, I survived," and then the corpse of his wife is there,
God.
and she doesn't get back. He's like, "Oh, we're gonna get back up now," and she doesn't.
This is heartbreaking. This
the
is
Return of the Jedi moment with the Ewoks.
Yes, exactly. How did you know what I was going to say?
Because that's the most famous example in all of movies of two cute creatures and one of them is just dead. It's so sad. That scene is so fucking sad.
So how are you doing, Joanna? On our side of the room.
Oh, I'm Googling Return of the Jedi right now.
We're talking about
to
the
figure
scene
out
where
which
these two Ewoks get hit by a laser blast, and one of them gets up, and he walks over to his friend. He's like, "Get up!" and his friend never gets up.
Which one was this?
The one with the Ewoks, Joanna.
Anyway, I'm just glad to have somebody on my side for once. I know
Ryan's spirit is lifted. Yeah. I mean, and again, I didn't hate this movie. There are maybe two I've hated. This one I very much enjoyed. I would put this in my top 3.
It's cool to hear you guys talk about it as non lifelong fans or whatever, because you're kind of going through these movies now with all of your experiences and how you assess things, art, whatever now.
Yeah.
And it's I don't know, it's different. You guys are looking at these movies very I don't like this movie, not because there's a lot to love about it, the Monster Summit, the bringing in alien stuff, but I look at so many different things when I look at a Godzilla film, and one of those things is does the model work look really good? I love seeing great scale moments where there's people running and there's a monster in the background. It looks like it's actually there. Or when they're fighting each other and it looks like actual monsters, not just people in suits on a set or little models or something like that. And this movie's really terrible at it. But it's also very funny and goofy, so it's just
right.
Cool
and mine is what are the plot points we're following that are different than the other films we've already seen?
Yeah,
and
right.
How many fight scenes can we have? Can we keep it to a minimum? Keep it to one big one? But I also think it's interesting.
And the human element is totally great in this
Yeah,
one.
I think the human element, in anything I watch, that's a big, coming from the acting side of things, I'm always like, what's the character? Where's the story for the humans? But I think it's interesting too, Ryan, you always pointing out, these movies, they are getting and have been getting and are silly. They've kind of crossed the line, and it'd be hard to come back from that, because sometimes I think I go into them coming off of, I'm currently watching Breaking Bad for the first time, so it's like definitely a shift as far as state of mind. And I think I sometimes need to remind myself to enjoy some of the sillier elements rather than being like, oh God, this movie is ridiculous. Like, that's a part of the point, and they're more aware of it than I'm sometimes letting on.
I'm glad to hear that, because I mean, it's like, I know I said this at the beginning, but when they made these, they weren't entirely made to be as realistic as possible. I don't know I'm sure if a factor was they knew they couldn't make it realistic, but they also just tried to make it stylistically interesting and funny and weird, and I think it succeeds in a lot of ways with that.
Absolutely.
I have a question for you guys today.
All right.
So, because we got some real insights into the traumas of all the monsters today, if you had to pick a monster and give them a title and subject for their revealing, heartbreaking one man or one woman show, what would it be? So just like lay out which of the 4 monsters, what the show would be called, what they do in it.
Wait, am I giving a one-line description of the show, or?
No, just like say what monster it is, what the title of the show would be, and just like a brief description of what.
Okay, mine's kind of short, but it would just be Godzilla, never been kissed. That's what I see all the sadness coming down to. He's just being a dick because no one has ever been like, yeah, I'll go on a date with you. So he's just like kind of being mean about it to overcome his sad feelings. But Godzilla, just like wait till college, it'll happen. It's fine.
Oh man.
That's another thing I can really sympathize with.
That's my movie. You can take it through what you want. It's just Godzilla going through hallways in high school, but it's like kind of like Grease, but he's Godzilla.
It's kind of like Grease, but he's Godzilla. Great quote.
So mine would focus on, it's by Rodan, and it focuses on the moment when Larva Mothra silks all over him, and hang on, and Godzilla, well, everyone's watching. Everyone's watching, like all of the humans, the fairies, the peanuts are watching, and Godzilla is dancing around laughing at him, and it's called Bukkake and the Beast.
Oh my god. Oh my god. It works though.
I'm so sorry.
Do you have one, Todd?
No, you're not. Sorry, Sam. You know you're not.
No, I am 1,000% proud.
Since you guys went for Rodan and Mothra and Godzilla, I guess I'll do one for King Ghidorah. And I think it would just be a tell-all, it's like King Ghidorah, my side of the story, it's like from his perspective, it's like this was a really unfair moment where all the monsters like ganged up on him and he feels like he's been bullied and whatnot.
First thing I notice is my egg getting hit by pickaxes, and that was the beginning of my day.
I can hear it. For some reason, I hear Kathy Griffin's voice
narrating it.
Coming out of
Dear God.
Oh no!
Never mind. I don't want to see this show. I don't want to read the show at all.
Take it back. That'd be really funny.
It's three Kathy Griffins, and they're all talking at different speeds about different things.
That's so accurate. Okay, so if King Ghidorah is 3 Kathy Griffin heads, what is Godzilla?
Oh man.
John Goodman.
I want Hannibal Buress.
Oh my God.
I like that too. I like that.
Is Sally Field Mothra?
Oh, for sure.
I kind of wanted Greta Gerwig.
No, Greta Gerwig's too weird to be Mothra. She's
I just
gotta
picture
be a,
a matronly person who's just like, this is why we can't have nice things. You know who I'm picturing? I'm picturing Sassy from Homeward Bound, which is why I think I said Sally Field, because I think that's her voice.
And Rodan is Danny DeVito.
I'll buy it.
You know, it's funny. I was thinking Kevin Hart.
Yes, Rodan's
either works very well for me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just kind of whiny in general. Yes.
All right, perfect.
Yeah.
And sidekicky.
And then who who do we dare cast as the atrocity that is Mothra? Larva Martha?
No, isn't that who we cast?
Why did you say that
No,
name?
there's no way Sally Field... Sally Field's not a larva. Sally Field is matronly,
She's a fucking larva that's going to turn into a matronly woman, but she has the personality. The larva has the personality of a grounded matronly woman.
I don't buy it. Can you see Sally Field silking someone?
Can I see? Can I see Mothra playing Tom Hanks's mother? Yes.
This is so bizarre. This is all 12-year-old Ryan wanted to go back. Let's go back in time.
Ryan, did you ever have an outfit like those two little boys on the TV show in this movie? Because that's, again, when Sam said that, I was like, all I could think about was if Ryan had shorts and high socks growing up.
Oh, man.
Oh, absolutely.
There's
a picture of me and my sister where I'm wearing a red sweater and khakis.
Posted on the page.
High socks,
Perfect.
just like that.
Ryan got all of his fashion tips from 60s Godzilla films in the 90s.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, I don't think I paid attention to fashion at all because up until I was like 15 or 16, I just wore exclusively shirts with dragons and cars on them.
Oh, yeah.
That is the greatest fact.
We came up with our new scoring system last time, but we'll go over it again briefly. So as Godzillavangelists, we have a religious duty to ascribe each movie to Godzilla Heaven, Purgatory, or Hell, and explain why. So, starting with Joanna this time.
This one made it to heaven. I had a lot of fun. I can't put it in Purgatory, you know? It wasn't the top one in heaven, but it doesn't go in Purgatory for me, so I was much relieved watching it and being like, oh, thank God I like it. Thank God.
I'm glad. You were a little harsh at the end of Mothra versus Godzilla, so I'm glad that this one was really
it's just the double big monster battle that really gets to me. I just want one epic battle, some discussion, deliberation, debate. That's it.
Oh, well.
Most of the time you're going to be disappointed.
That's sort of what these movies are.
This is a rarity.
Well, you know. Just waiting for Matthew Broderick.
But I'm glad it made your top 3.
Yeah.
That's fantastic.
I'll hop in and say I'm going to probably go the bottom rung of Godzilla Heaven.
Yeah.
I think that it was squarely in heaven for the first half, and I was all about it. And then once they started playing volleyball, I think I was lost a little bit. But nevertheless, it was enjoyable, and it was I didn't find myself checking the time through it.
That's all I can ask.
It's yeah.
So
Sam and I are always like, really love the movie. The humans love the human story, and then when the monsters come in, we're like, step back a notch. But you know.
Yeah. Then I just start thinking about what actors would play them.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's my rating.
All right, how about you, Todd?
Boy, this rating system is really unique, and I'm hearing it for the first time. It's hard for me because I don't know. No Godzilla movies except for the American ones, maybe, are in hell. Most assuredly, all Godzilla movies are in heaven.
Oh, contrary.
And so I might.
That's why your app didn't win. I'm so sorry, but Ryan
I might
needed
agree
some
with this
people.
bottom rung of heaven situation. Because it's not my favorite, which would make me, if I was going to put it in one of these 3 categories, it might be in the Purgatory realms for me, simply because, like, it's so hard because, there's just so many things I love about these films, and they're not always in every film. So collectively, they're kind of, so this one, I do love the human element. It's pretty crazy. It's got a lot of firsts going on. There's like this big monster battle, which is great because the next movie is like one of my favorites because of big, battle royale monster battles. It introduces aliens into the franchise, which is a big deal, even though you never see them on screen, which is weird. And but then the monster battle stuff to me is like it doesn't look very good. So so anyway, bottom rung of heaven sounds just about right.
What about you, Ryan?
All right, I think we're all on the same page here. I remembered feeling kind of middling about this. And even when I watched it with Sam, I'm like, that's sort of in the middle of the pack for me. But watching it again, briefly in preparation for this, I was like, I really like this. I think I like it as much as, or I guess more based on this rating. I like it more than Mothra versus Godzilla. It's just a lot of fun. Todd has a point that the budget is stretched on this movie because this is the only year they shot 2 Godzilla movies in the same year. And you can see the cracks in some ways, but I think that otherwise this is kind of like the peak of entertainment for the old ones, at least, because you just have like a great intertwining of the human and monster stories. It's so weird and funny. It's unlike anything that gets made nowadays, and that's sort of what I look for in the old Godzilla movies.
Oh man, the peak of entertainment to me is the one with the kid and the dreams, and I mean that's just like the greatest thing on the planet.
That's so funny. For those of you who don't know, Todd is talking about what is in the general fandom considered to maybe be the worst one in the series.
Exactly.
I disagree.
It's not the worst. It's super funny.
That's the most entertaining one to you.
Is this Son of Godzilla?
Yeah.
No, it's Godzilla's Revenge.
Oh, yeah, Godzilla in space.
Godzilla's Revenge. Does it have an alternate title? Isn't it like All Out Monsters Attack?
All Monsters Attack.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah. The American version is Godzilla's Revenge.
I appreciate too just the fact that again there were like 2 ladies in this that I was like, okay, yeah, I'd be down to play that part. Like, which I haven't said, I don't think yet.
Yeah,
there were still a few
really
comments of like, you're a pretty lady, but I was like, okay, they're steering in the right direction.
Right, like when they were telling her to take her clothes off when she was like talking to them. That was gross. Well, I'm glad we all, on some level, enjoyed this movie. But it really is the end of an era, as we've been saying over and over again in so many different ways. This is a transition to Godzilla movies trying to be something totally different. So I'd like us to do a little wrap-up episode, just the 3 of us, to talk about everything we've gotten out of the movies so far and go back and review the ones that we didn't give an official rating to. How does that sound, my lovely co-host?
That sounds great.
And then after that...
Should have said that creepier.
Just, if you say my lovelies, then it's creepy.
My lovelies.
Yeah.
My pretty.
There you go.
There we go. And then we're going to do something completely different. You guys have been hounding me.
Oh my god.
So after that, we're going to watch the 1998 American
Boom, boom, boom.
Yes!
Yeah.
Oh my god. This is Christmas for me.
Oh my god. I'm so excited.
You should watch the Riff
fact-
Tracks version instead.
I cannot
Believe me,
wait.
Todd, I wish I could use that crutch. But they need to see it in all its
You do need to see it.
unholy glory.
You need to see it like we did.
In fact, we might tackle after that the other American Godzilla, the 2014 Gareth Edwards one, and then Shin Godzilla, which is the most recent live-action Japanese one. These are sort of the 3 that the most people know about and have seen and have talked about. So we might do a little arc of the hot and controversial Godzilla movies before we get back to the old ones.
Perfect.
Cannot wait.
So I hope you guys are happy. We're going from a high to a deep low. And it's all...
I am just excited to see if I rate it higher or lower than like Rodan, what I said about... I'm just like very curious.
I'm okay with you rating it higher than Rodan, but I'm scared you guys are going to be like, oh, this is the best one I've seen so far.
It might happen.
I think I'll just kill myself.
That would hurt me to a level that just can't be really explained.
Is this Matthew Broderick coming off of Election? Did he do this after?
It is.
Oh my god. I cannot wait. Election is...
I don't blame Matthew Broderick. I blame whoever decided to give him that hat.
I'm bringing a cake to the viewing party.
Yeah, we got to do something special for this, but we'll figure it out. I think with that, it's time to say goodbye to our audience. So, screonk, everyone.
Screonk.
Godzillavangelists, a Geek Stew Network podcast, is brought to you by me, Ryan Sargent, and my friends, Joanna Brodecki and Sam Schlenker. We'd like to thank our fabulous editor and mixer, Rachel Deering. All our incredible music is composed by Robert Mai, and our wonderful artwork is drawn by Cassidy Stone. Special thanks to our families, friends, and the wonderful artists who made the movies we talked about today. Godzillavangelists is a satirical, critical work, not affiliated or endorsed by Toho, Legendary Pictures, or anyone behind the Godzilla series. Visit our website at godzillavangelists.com. We're also on Twitter at GodzillaCast and Instagram at GodzillaVangelists. If you prefer to listen to us online, we have a YouTube channel, and the latest episode is always on SoundCloud too. Thank you so much for listening, and we hope you join us next episode. In the meantime, keep spreading the word of Godzilla.